welcome all to the Sin Savages podcast. My name is Mike. I'm one of your co-hosts. Today we'll be talking about various topics from the ridiculous price of gas to Russia being suspended from Mastercard and Visa services in Russia, to a couple other key topics. Joining me are my co-host. We got Brian here.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I think one of the topics too is Kyle's mom.
Kyle's mom, exactly.
I'll take the lead on that one.
We also got our other co-host here, Blake.
Howdy.
And of course, we got the soulless ginger, Kyle.
Yeah,
I thought he was the
it was quite the quest, but I got it.
He came back from his soul journey.
Did you
spirit
solve
journey.
the Sphinx's riddle?
Yes.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for coming and watching us. And why don't we just jump into this? I mean, have you guys been catching up on the recent gas prices that have just kind of skyrocketed across the country?
How can you avoid it?
Yeah.
My goodness.
I'll say even if you don't look at the news, you're well aware of gas is going up.
Yeah. I mean, well, we have this story here. It's from ABC News, and here we go.
It's not gas.
Judges. Oh no! Oh,
It's all right. You jumped the shark on that one. Man.
jumped the shark on that one, man.
We're gonna
I'm
get to
sorry,
that.
guys.
We're gonna get to
We'll,
that.
we'll get to the gas, guys. We'll get to the gas. We actually have this other story here that I think our co-host here, Kyle, brought with us. He said he saw this article and he thought it was very interesting. You want to give a little context on this before we read the article?
So for all of our UFC fans, everyone knows Cain Velazquez, former heavyweight UFC champion. It's been out of the game for a little bit, but I was
knows how
actually
to fight.
yes,
Okay.
yes, very well. But I was actually listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he had Michael Bisping on, and they were actually talking about the story, and this is where I first originally heard it. But Cain Velazquez was charged in a fatal shooting. And he's facing, I think it was like 10 counts, up to 20 years in prison. So when I went and looked at it, it turns out that there was a guy that, according to Joe Rogan anyway, molested his daughter, and it was like, I think the court document said like 100 times. And so essentially what happened is he followed this guy and for like 11 miles or something like that, and then pulled out a .40 caliber pistol and just unloaded into his vehicle. I think he ended up ramming the car and then unloading the mag into the truck. But turns out it wasn't just the guy that molested his daughter. It was the guy. I think it was the guy's mom and stepmom were also in there in the car with him. But yeah, so that's kind of an overview of kind of essentially what happened.
Interesting. Well, let's go ahead and read the article here. Judge denies bail to UFC champion Cain Velazquez charged in fatal shooting. Let's see. San Jose, California. A judge in California denied bail Monday to former two-time UFC heavyweight champion Cain Velazquez, who faces attempted murder and multiple gun assault charges after authorities say he fired at a pickup truck carrying a man accused of sexually abusing a 4-year-old family member. Velazquez was arrested in San Jose last week after he chased a pickup carrying the man through busy streets in 3 Silicon Valley cities, ramming the vehicle with his own pickup truck during an 11-mile high-speed chase. Prosecutors said Velazquez, 39, fired a .40 caliber pistol at the vehicle several times, wounding the man's stepfather, who was driving, in his arm and torso, prosecutors said. Celebrity attorney Mark Garagos, who was representing Velazquez, told reporters outside of the court that he plans on vindicating Cain and getting him back with his family, the Mercury News reported. Wow. I mean, that's a pretty heavy story.
Yeah, this is pretty.
I mean, it doesn't go into details
story.
about, who the family member was, but you said it, from Joe Rogan's episode that it was his daughter.
Yeah, Joe Rogan and Michael Bisping were saying that, and I don't know where they got this information, how they verified this, but they were saying it was his 4-year-old daughter.
Wow.
And yeah, as a parent who has kids, I can only imagine the freaking rage that was going through him. I mean, one time is bad enough, let alone 100 times. And I don't think his kid was the only one that got molested. I think it happened at a daycare center where it was like multiple kids.
Correct.
And how did the news break about it? How did you find out? Was it just
how did Joe Rogan find out?
I mean, how did Velazquez find out? How did any parent find out that their kids were getting molested?
Or he probably might have told him.
maybe there was a police investigation and it just came out and they're like, hey, like.
Yeah, I think sometimes depending on if it's a child, like they usually keep stuff pretty close to the vest on that.
Yeah.
But it may have just been, she, I don't know, his child told him and pointed it out. So that could be it. But hey, I think I did remember seeing something on Dana White, like they had asked him about this. And I hadn't seen this article yet, but they were asking Dana White about it, so I was kind of familiar with it. But now it makes kind of sense. But they're like, what do you think about this? And Dana White goes, well, I think other than the fact that there was unfortunately other people in the vehicle, I was like, he pretty much did what any of us said we would do.
Yeah.
That if we were in that instance, and it makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't think a heartless father out there that wouldn't go after somebody for this. And we, as a society, tend to harp on vigilantism. However, there's no tolerance for child, molestation, predators of children, and like that. And then we always find out about too. It's like apparently there is, honor amongst thieves in prison. They don't like that crap.
No,
you go to jail and you molested a kid, because a lot of these prisoners were molested as kids. You go to jail, they're going to kill you.
Go to Congress, they'll promote you.
Well, I mean, this just reminds me of other stories. Like I read a couple of them in Texas, where fathers find out that their kids were being molested, and they just went out there and found the guy or girl or whatever and shot them to death. And they went to court, had their day in court, and they had a jury of their peers, and their peers were like, nope, he's completely innocent, right? Like, I think it's the banality of evil, right? Just coming out, especially nowadays. I mean, it feels like evil just keeps winning and growing and gathering strength, and I think it's just the immorality of our common society nowadays that this stuff like this is just normal, right? I think we just become desensitized. So it's like, oh, another kid got molested, like what's new?
Just watching a Netflix series over the weekend about the USA Olympic gymnastics team.
Oh yeah,
about the
Larry Nassar or whatever.
Yeah, I was like, holy crap! Like I had kind of heard about it, didn't really pay much attention to it. Don't really watch gymnastics, So, but we watched this documentary over the weekend, and I was just like, holy cow, man! This guy he's pretty evil.
Yeah.
So he was like molesting kids in front of their parents, and they didn't even know it because he was like so good at it. Like he could cover it up.
Yeah, like just manipulation, right? Like keep quiet because I'll make your dreams come true and get that gold medal and
grooming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Well, some of the girls, they said they're like, we didn't really know because he's a doctor, and so he's doing these procedures, and so we just think it's like, well, okay, well, this is part of the procedure. And then find out, of course, it isn't.
Yeah.
Wow.
Speaking of child molesters, if you haven't heard it today, this is your daily reminder. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.
Well, this episode will be taken down momentarily. It was great to see everybody, and we'll catch you guys next week.
So another thing with that Cain Velazquez thing that it didn't touch on in that article was the judge denied. Well, no, it did. It said it denied him bail.
Yeah, he denied him bail.
But it didn't say that the molester that was released from prison back in February was zero. It was like zero bail.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember what news organization commented or reported that, but I remember reading an article where it was all like, and his attorney, Cain Velasquez's attorney, was like, this is the perfect example of what's wrong with like the criminal justice system. Is like you have dudes like this, no bail. Like
you'll find no better protector of predators than the state of California.
Oh man, I think they were trying to pass a law saying changing the age of consent to like 12 or something like that. So it would retroactively like let a bunch of these felons out of jail or like let them scot free if they were like in arraignment or something like that. I think 12 or 14, something, a ridiculous age that's like, and they were like touting like, oh, these people they have rights and feelings too. They're I forgot the terminology that they were calling for them, but they're like they're people too. I'm like, no, these are not people. They're monsters.
Yeah.
Well, I know at one point in California they were trying to pass a bill that a lot of people were saying, well, you're trying to legalize pedophilia because it was essentially like if there was as long as it was within a 10-year age gap, it wasn't considered. It wasn't considered illegal. So if you were like
11 and 20.
Yeah. As long as you were within that, I don't know whatever happened to it. I know it was presented in their House of Representatives. I don't know if it ever got passed. I sure hope not.
I mean, whoever brought that bill up should, immediately be, what's it called?
But yeah, you read it and you're
kicked out.
it was disgusting.
Yeah, there's like a section of people, they take, you shouldn't kink shame, whatever this thing is. Can't make people feel bad about their sexual preferences. Around the same time that have Man Boy Love, which I couldn't believe was a real organization, but is. You get these together and you think, it's just humans loving humans. We got to normalize this stuff. It's so disgusting. And you have Hollywood that on the backside totally is okay with this. You think of someone like Kevin Spacey, who had
from House of Cards,
was on numerous talk show hosts. All these people knew him, and comes out, he's messing kids. I didn't know that. I'm pretty sure a lot of those talk show hosts knew about that, but they don't say anything. And no one says anything about this because no one wants to speak up about it. Same thing among other politicians and other corrupt officials, that people know about this, but they don't say anything, and it's rage-inducing.
Yeah, and to be to be honest about things, we're not advocating for harassment of anybody, or if anybody chooses to have their own sexual orientation, whatever it is, like they're free to do so in this country, and power to them to live their lives however they want. But once their beliefs start infringing on our beliefs, on our personal beliefs, and start becoming law, that we are forced to follow into that regime and thinking, that's the issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the slippery slope argument that we've seen with this whole, you can identify as whatever gender you want to identify as, right? Well, what has happened with that now? We've seen where people are saying, well, I identify as 12 years old, and so, well, where are you going to go with that? How evil can you get into if you sit there and say, well, I can identify as a 12-year-old and you're a 45-year-old man, Yeah.
Yeah, there was a guy who tried to identify as a different age that went to a court for it to change it legally, and they ruled it a no because this has to do with there's a legal drinking age, there's a little driving age, so for now they said you couldn't identify as a different age. And when these transgender advocates talk about their ideology, you bring up, well, are you progressive enough to be transracial and support that someone born white wants to identify as Asian or black, and they think, I'm not going to even dignify that with a response. But that's the next step. There is more difference in your physiology between male and female than between a white and a black person. There is more scientific evidence for a difference between two genders than there are between two races.
Well, to bring it back onto topic for that article that we just read, I mean, what do you guys think? What do you guys think is going to happen in court? You guys think he's going to be acquitted by Jerry Spears?
Collateral damage complicates things.
It's California, dude.
Yeah,
I think it's a flip of a coin on that one. It depends on I would say, based on California, and Mike, feel free to throw your racial card into this one, right? If he happens to get a decent amount of minorities on the jury board, say even Hispanic, I think he'll get overthrown. I think he'll be okay.
I
agree to a point. I think the attempted murder or the murder charge, I think they're going to get rid of that. As far as the gun charges, I don't think he's getting out of those ones.
No, he shouldn't on that. However, anything with the guy that molested his daughter, I think they'll toss out. Anything else,
first degree murder,
incidental stuff. Yeah, anything incidental. He hurt somebody else, which of course is unfortunate, right? I can't put myself in his shoes, but Monday morning quarterbacking should have. If you're gonna tell him, you should have made sure he was alone. But anyway,
kidding.
Well, as the resident minority and ethnic color here.
Our token.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong on what I said?
No, Mr. Brian, you are not wrong. I think, as a recent father as well, I couldn't imagine something like that happening to my child, right? And if it did, I wouldn't even know what mental state I would be in once I learned that happened, right? And that the guy or person or what individual that did this atrocious act was out free, walking around, enjoying life, and probably doing this to other children, right? Again, it just comes back to evil. Some people are just evil,
Yeah.
And what can you do but prepare your kids and
I
try to teach them to.
I had a discussion with somebody on this, or not this one, the Olympic one, right? But this could be tied into it. So this person doesn't believe in the death penalty. Okay, that's fine. But I said, when you have someone this evil, right, or molesting all of these Olympic, these young girls, regardless that they're Olympics or not, anybody. I was like, do you think that person should be, punished to an extent farther than just be put in prison for the rest of their lives? And then it kind of put them into a bind, because then they're like, well, because their whole argument was, well, not their argument, their premise was that, this person should be dead. And I was like, I thought you didn't believe in the death penalty. It's like you put you into a bind on this one. Me, I'm of the mindset, if you mess with children, if you hurt children, goodbye. You're done.
Yep.
I don't mean you're done like in prison for the rest of your life. Your life is done. You have forfeited your life.
Yeah, you made that choice, the specific choice, and this is the consequence of that, right? I mean, in how many countries is molestation of kids like just outright vigilante, and nobody does anything because they understand that.
The prison thing that we brought up, right? And I think it was Brazil. They fomented a prison riot, right? This massive riot in this prison, shut it down, everything. And when they ended up getting everything back in order after hours, the one area where they kept all the child molesters, every single one of them was murdered, like brutally. And the whole point of the riot was for that. The prisoners wanted to get in there and they wanted to kill these guys. That was the whole point of it.
Well, that's the reason why in prisons, like, most of those guys aren't allowed to be in Gen Pop because they won't last.
Yeah, they're put in a different ward or something.
Yeah, Mr. What's his name from Subway? I think he's got his own little
Jared.
Slim Jared.
He wanted to make it that way. They want to provide it in a normal store. One thing about this UFC fighter, I certainly hope he had enough evidence that the guy was guilty of the molestation charges, because that would put another bind on this if he's under court or if it's being investigated and he's not found guilty yet. Because
I think this guy had previous convictions.
Previous convictions. Well, that
I believe so. I mean, fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure he had previous convictions because he was already in jail, I believe, and then he was released at the end of February.
Well, if it's true, beat the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not advocating for it. Just if it happens.
We're not calling for an assassination of anybody.
Yeah, I mean, and
right,
we will touch on certain topics involving calls for assassination on other
Russian
people later
people.
on. But with that, why don't we jump
leaders.
into this other story? I think as we were talking at the beginning of the episode, as we were driving around today, I think me and my wife, we saw crazy gas prices. I mean, I think yesterday prices were right under $4 yesterday, like $3.98, $3.99. And then today on the way here to the studio, we saw $4.25 a gallon for regular.
In West Virginia,
I don't even want to look at diesel.
Yeah, I'm on the border out in West Virginia in the Panhandle, and we're talking
Allegedly.
Giving away trade secrets.
3 weeks ago, it was $3.25, and this morning it was $3.99.
Wow.
Yep, $3.99.
Dude, like last week, there was a 7-Eleven right nearby us that it was like $3.50, and then like yesterday we were driving around, it was like $4.19. Yep.
So how exactly did these high gas prices come about, Brian?
Well,
funny.
why don't we go to our article that we pulled up for that? Here we have an article from MSN, and it's gas prices surge towards record high as White House woos Saudis and Venezuelans. As prices in the U.S. grew closer to record levels on Monday, while the White House looked to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia in an effort to mitigate the consequences of a potential Russian oil embargo, prices have surpassed $4 per gallon, the highest Americans have seen since July 2008. The Associated Press reported price tracking gas buddy said Monday that the U.S. is closing the gap with its $4.10 per gallon record price, but that previous record would equal about $5.24 when taking inflation into account. The U.S. is weighing deals and negotiations with both Venezuela and Saudi Arabia to ease further possible price surges from a ban on Russian oil imports, according to news reports. The U.S. is both the world's biggest oil producer and consumer and imports 245 million barrels of oil from Russia in 2021. The AP reported this accounted for 8% of all U.S. oil import. the possible exclusion of which is expected to take a toll at U.S. gas pumps. I don't think people understand. I mean, I think it was during the State of the Union, Biden said that they were releasing jointly with a bunch of NATO countries about 60 million barrels of oil.
3 days.
And that's about, the U.S. goes through about 20 million barrels a day. So but that's 60 million barrels for all the countries in NATO, though, I think.
Yeah.
Not just for the U.S. So it's even less than that for U.S. gas.
Even though Saudi Arabia is the king of gas and oil exports, we are not that far behind. I think we're like maybe second or third in oil production. We produce a lot of our own, but with people shutting down pipelines, drain our access.
Well, I think we were. I don't think we are anymore. I think Mr. Brian has some cold hard facts for us here.
Yes. So I spent some good time working on this over the weekend, and I don't have a teleprompter to be able to read the stuff I write, so I have old paper here and
trees, dead trees.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go through this. I'm gonna read through this, and then we'll get you guys' response after you hear some of the stuff. Okay, so we know that the three major fossil fuels that the U.S. uses are petroleum, natural gas, and coal. Combined account for 77.6% of the U.S.'s primary energy production. Natural gas accounts for 36%. Petroleum accounts for 32%. Coal, 11%. Renewable energy is 12%. And nuclear and electric power is 9%. So we know that because oil is a globally traded commodity, different factors around the world affect the supply of the demand of oil, in turn affecting the price of Americans pay at the gas pump. We know this already. We're seeing this right now. Growing demand for oil in other parts of the world puts upward pressure on the prices. Bad weather, geopolitical risks, these all can disrupt the supply chain. If there's a hurricane, some kind of a natural disaster, refinery suspended operations, any of those, they can choke up the supply chain. Of course, they drive prices higher, right? We see what in Florida every year when there's a hurricane, what happens? The price of lumber goes to the roof, right? Again, natural disasters, war, famine, even just the rumors of these things can cause the price of gases to go higher. Speculators working in future markets can increase the price. A lot of people talk about speculators. They can increase the price of gasoline if inventories build up or sellers wait for higher prices, but the effect is marginal because companies must eventually offload those inventories. Okay, so when we look at fuels, right? We look at the costs and whatnot. We think of what are some of those costs are that are incurred with that gallon of gas, right? So, biggest one, taxes, right? Federal excise tax. Anybody want to take an idea how much out of $1 is from federal taxes?
30 cents.
No.
I would say closer to like half, 40, 45.
Actually, it's lower.
Oh, lower.
Yep. Federal excise tax is 18 cents per gallon.
Oh.
State excise tax is 51 cents per gallon.
Whoa.
Sales tax estimated anywhere between 10%. And that 51%, that fluctuates by state as well. So we know that, we don't know this. You're learning this now. The highest states with the highest taxes is not, California is not number one. It's actually number two. It's our neighbor over here is number one, Pennsylvania. New York's number two.
Yeah, well, they're big,
California's number two. New York's number three. Yeah. New Jersey's like number 4. So some more costs. We have fees of low carbon gas programs. That's 22 cents per gallon. We have greenhouse gas programs. That's 15 cents per gallon. Underground tank storage. This is 2 cents per gallon. That means that if you fill up your 23-gallon tank, if you live in California, the state gets $26.
What? Per gallon?
Over 23
or
gallons.
Just for the total.
For the total cost. They're getting $26.
Every time you fill up your tank.
Yep. So, some people are talking about who's getting rich off this, right? Well, gas station owners. Gas station owners who usually only own one station make more money on their mini marts than on gas, much like movie theaters. They don't make money on the movies, they make money on the concessions. Gas is practically a loss leader. Gas station owners make more on hot dogs, big gulps, and coffee. By the time gas station factors in the cost, such as labor, insurance, franchise fees, credit card fees, they may make 4 to 7 cents per gallon. If it's nothing, but it's not as much as the government takes for doing nothing to create or produce the product. So the government's getting all this money, the state or whatnot. They're doing nothing to produce their product. They're doing nothing to refine the product. They're doing nothing to get the product anywhere, but they're getting 51 cents, on every dollar of gas. So what about big, scary, greedy executives, right? Are they making a lot of money? According to the Natural Resource Defense Council, those robber barons make $1.12 for overhead, pumping the oil, getting the oil to the refinery, sourcing out new oil fields, technology to increase the latter. So they're taking the biggest risks, right? But they're only making $1.12 on the price of fuel, right? So still, they're making less than
exponentially less than the government.
Okay, what about refineries, right? Refineries got to make some money, right? The refineries, they're making about 5 cents a gallon.
Wow. Huh.
All right. Okay. Well, what about the oil tankers? Right. They got to make some dough. You got to transport that oil, right? So the oil tankers. Well, the oil tankers and the pipeline operators, they make a penny a gallon.
Oh my gosh.
I have worked and work in supply chain for the 20 years of my life. All right. I am in no means a severe expert when it comes to supply chain, but I kind of know my stuff, right? You run a razor thin line in some areas of supply chain, but holy crap, 1 cent, those guys are...
Their margins you can't budge them.
Super tight. So when you sit there and you see these ships that are sitting off the coast in LA or off the coast in New York or wherever you may be in Louisiana, they're eating that cost, and it's severe. That's why they estimate out a year in advance. Like when they go through the Panama Canal, you have to recommend, or you have to request to go through it a year in advance. So you have to know down to like almost the hour what time you're going to be going through that thing. That's how serious it is. And the Suez Canal, it's similar. You have to be on the ball and that stuff. Okay, so let's talk about other things with oil. What are some of the things that comes from oil?
Like products made from oil?
Yes.
Oh, medication?
Sure.
Petroleum. Tires?
Yes.
Right? Rubber?
Yes.
Plastics?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff.
The delivery of every product in your store.
Transportation, right? Energy to transport goods and services.
Right.
Utilities.
The oil that you push on the ships is carried by the oil.
Yeah. You burn oil to take oil somewhere.
All right. So I'm just going to read some stuff off here, and we'll kind of go through it. So you got backpacks, you got balloons, ballpoint pens, bandages, clothing, right? Clothing. Yeah. Coffee makers, cold cream, combs. Let's see, curtains, dentures, deodorant, detergent, dice, dishwasher liquid, dog collars, dyes, faucet washers, fertilizers.
Oh, yeah.
Mike, what happens if we don't have fertilizer?
Well, funny that you should mention that. Pretty much we can't grow food, and then we all starve.
Especially you, the biggest vegan I've ever met in my entire life.
That is a lie. I am not a vegan. I do not espouse that rhetoric in my life, and I abhor that.
I have one more on here that I think you guys will find funny.
Jesus life.
Solar panels.
Oh, solar panels. Are you serious?
Yes.
You need oil?
You need oil to make solar panels and about a host of other harmful chemicals.
Oh, and you need oil to mine all the precious
and you can't recycle solar panels as of yet. So
No.
those things
Perfect.
Yeah.
Solar
All right.
panels is one of the most inefficient energy source just for how much it takes toxic stuff it builds. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so we're not done yet. So the EIA, this is from EIA.gov. I'm pulling this information from government websites, so I'm not pulling this from left or right. This is coming from the government, okay? The EIA, you can find this on EIA.gov, estimates that the U.S. production could reach nearly 12 million barrels per day in 2019. This was an estimate in 2017, right? So what they're talking about here about going to 12 million barrels per day, we reached that. We reached that under Trump. We were at like 11.9. I think we broke 12 million barrels per day, which is why we became energy independent, right? And that's with the current governmental regulations, red tape, etc. So also, according to the EIA.gov, in 2020, the United States consumed an average of about 19 million barrels of petroleum per day. That's 63% of the oil usage, right? So if we can produce 12 million at current rates, and we're consuming 19, that's 63% of our consumption right there.
So we're producing most of what we need?
easily can.
We easily can, but that doesn't mean we do.
No, we don't. Not now. It's going down. It's
Right.
going down fast. It's tanking. So 94% of Americans' offshore acreage, vast tracts throughout the harbors off the coast of the East Coast, West Coast, and the Gulf of Mexico, nearly 100 billion barrels of oil are off limits to oil exploration right now. The Department of Labor Interior has drafted a proposal to open access to large swaths of these offshore resources, a move that would reverse a regulatory parting shot of the Obama administration aiming at stifling natural resource extraction. So another thing is that we saw they're not allowing, or the Biden administration is not going to allow oil companies to drill on government's land, right?
Right.
Now, a lot of people think it's like, oh, these are just small parts of each state, right? No. The federal government controls massive portions of land. You can Google it, and you can look up each individual state, and it shows you a portion of each state, how much the government owns. You look at like Alaska, it's insane. It's like
there's so many resources in Alaska. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could probably subside just on Alaska if we actually drilled it and mined it.
Yeah. Well, that's when you get into like fracking and stuff now
Right.
too, right? Well,
Yeah.
what do we see on the East Coast and in Pennsylvania and New York and New Jersey? They can't frack, but they have massive natural gas pockets down there, but they can't get it because the government's not going to allow them to do it.
Yep.
So I'm going to get to this later. We're going to kind of, I'm almost done with this, but we're going to get to the point where what I think we should be doing. So the United States imports 37% of its oil. Okay. The U.S. imports the most oil. We saw that on the article. The most oil per day based on April 2020 numbers. These are the states, these are the countries, the top 10 countries that we import oil from. Number 1 is Canada, 4 million barrels. 2, Mexico, 631,000. Saudi Arabia, 431,000. Russia, 408,000. Colombia, 277,000. Ecuador, 176,000. Iraq, 140,000. South Korea, 133,000. Brazil, 104,000. And the Netherlands, 93,000 barrels.
And that's per month, right? Or is that per year?
This is per day.
Oh, per day.
What?
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, the U.S. imports the most oil.
I mean, that makes
per
sense
day
because
basis.
every 2 days we,
Yeah, because
every day we spend-
we're
every day we
importing
spend about
billion.
20.
Yeah, we're importing like 1.1 plus billion barrels of oil from Canada.
Mhm.
And so 4.08 million barrels a day is. You should give. I'm not a mathematician, so 2 plus
large
2
number.
2 plus 2 equals 5, right?
See.
All right. So recently on Monday, prices to buy call options increased, right? We talk about speculation and whatnot, right? So speculation, it does have an effect, but on this today, call options have been increased, including at least 200 traded contracts to buy May contracts. This is for the month of May. They're doing it right now for Brent futures at $200 a barrel by the end of March. Wow. This is from Bloomberg.
Yeah, they're not even hiding it. I mean, there's no way they can. They're trying to get ahead of the story.
How many barrels of oil would we be importing? Would we be bringing into the country right now if we had the XL pipeline? Any guess?
I think we were down to 0.
No. How much would it be bringing in if we open up? If we were to finish the
open up?
pipeline, open it up? How many barrels of oil would we be bringing in per day?
Per day, I would say
500,000.
500,000 barrels.
510 million barrels.
Wow.
What did I say? Russia brings in 408,000.
Yep.
408,000. Yeah, I'm sorry. 510,000 barrels per day. Russia brings in 408,000 barrels per day. All right. Saudi Arabia 431,000. Either one of those, just by opening the XL pipeline, you're allowing that to negate either one of those, right? Mm-hmm. And Canada, yes, Trudeau's many things, and but Canada is still, they're our neighbors, friends and family alike, and we've had a long outstanding open border with them and trade relations, and to bring in that shale oil from them, not only would benefit them but us as well. But then you're talking about getting rid of, offsetting countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia. Well, who's Saudi Arabia as well? What do they control? OPEC,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what do we always hear Biden talk about? OPEC. Oh, we just need to have OPEC, pump more oil. We just got to get to OPEC and have them pump more oil. We don't need OPEC. You negated the Keystone Pipeline, which would have totally, completely, 100% offset this thing.
Wow.
Well,
So
in conclusion, what does that mean for gas prices going in the future? What do you guys think?
well, they're gonna keep increasing. I mean, it's
Under this,
Do you see any relief in sight?
not with this administration.
Well, here's the problem, though. Even if you cut out all the red tape, if you allowed all these, like, hey, drill, baby, drill, let's go, right? It still takes anywhere from 1 to 2 years to back up that pipeline.
Yeah.
To get all the stuff back to where it was, it takes 1 to 2 years, maybe even more, depending on what's going on around the world, right? And of course, the Department of Transportation is not helping issues any.
Buttigieg isn't helping?
No, it's weird.
No
The
way.
guy knows absolutely nothing about supply chain and logistics whatsoever. I think when he was mayor of his town, he couldn't even fix, potholes in his city. So you got this guy running the Department of Transportation. And if you want oil and you want all this, these things that we need. Oh, who's calling for drilling more oil, which is completely against, it goes against his company, Elon Musk. He sent out a tweet, like almost. He's like, hey, look, this goes against my company. Obviously, I make car batteries and stuff like that. He's like, but we need to be drilling oil right now.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
I think,
immediately.
Yeah,
I think PragerU. I saw it on
Yeah.
PragerU that they saw his tweet or posted his tweet.
he understands that electricity doesn't come from nothing, right? I mean, I think the U.S.'s total energy consumption from renewables is, I think, 20%. But how many people, how many people in this country use electricity? Pretty much everybody for everything, right? And there is absolutely no way that renewables can sustain, 100% usage for electricity today, right now. If we switched all the gas pumps, everything off, we go into the dark ages.
Oh, you're talking about apocalypse.
Yeah, there's nothing happening.
Death on a biblical scale.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I think today news broke about the price for a barrel of oil. It just hit, I think, $130, almost $140. For those of you watching, in 2008, prices hit, I think, just a little bit over $140 a barrel of oil. And that was the final straw that broke the camel's back and sent us into that recession.
But they're talking about sustained 150 plus. Sustained.
No.
Right now.
Chase and a couple other places are talking about 200.
Yeah. No. I know that.
$200 a barrel.
But they're saying on average sustained 150 plus. I'm like that's insane.
Yeah.
You can't do that. If in 2008 where we didn't have the debt that we're in right now, massive debt that we're in right now, and we could bear and $140 a barrel broke us.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to tank the global economy.
If you're
Absolutely.
if you're not awake to this and you're not paying attention to this, you're going to be in trouble. I highly recommend, and I don't mean this to scare people, that you should be preparing. Now, that doesn't mean going out and running to the stores and ransacking the stores, but you need to be buying extra food on the side. You need to be doing these things because the price of gas, we're like, it's going to be a little more expensive at the pump, right? Maybe I get more, money from work or whatever. Well, then you start getting into a spiral on that, a recession spiral on that. But overall, I think we talked about this on the last podcast. As food goes up, the cost of everything else goes up because you have to transport all this stuff to places. But most importantly, food.
Yeah.
Food is going to skyrocket.
And when we're talking gas prices, we're talking, $4 plus, per gallon. That's not diesel. Most of these trucks, and transportation methods, they use diesel.
Yeah.
Diesel's at like
Ships.
Diesel's at like $7 a gallon.
Yeah.
$8 a gallon. Canada, I think, base regular gasoline, petrol, they're at $8 a gallon, not diesel. I don't even know what their diesel cost is right now, but I mean, gas and food, everything, the whole global economy runs on oil. Unfortunately, that is what it is, and if we want to transition as much as we can, we can, but that takes time, effort, and resources that the world just doesn't have at this moment.
Or here's the other thing, right? We're looking at a global war that looks like it's kicking off, okay?
Oh, yeah.
It may kick off, and there's a good possibility that something's going to happen between Russia or China, right? Well, based off all those numbers I just told you with oil, so when it comes to the U.S. government, we rely on the military to protect us, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the constitutional duty of the U.S. government to protect its citizenry. Well, the U.S. government, the military, 70% of it is relies on oil.
Yep.
Yeah, we need those pipelines just for our own self-reliance
Self-defense.
and
Self-defense.
energy
Well,
independence.
we're already tapping into the strategic oil reserves right, to offset costs for a day or two.
There's only 5 years left of that.
I mean, I can't believe that, when with war on the horizon, I mean, NATO just authorized fighter jets to go into Ukrainian airspace to combat Russian Air Force. That's absolutely insane. That if NATO aircraft crosses into that airspace, it's World War III, man. Russia is going to start launching.
Wait, NATO setting? So I thought it was they were just providing aircrafts to the Ukrainians.
No. If you look at the article, I mean, fact check me on this. I could be wrong, but from what I read, NATO authorized NATO aircraft to be flown into Ukrainian airspace and provide almost the no-fly zone that people keep espousing,
air
right?
support.
What is NATO going to do?
I mean, NATO is the U.S., guys. When we speak NATO, we're really speaking the U.S. and with little brother UK and Germany and all these other little countries, like backing the U.S. up. So
NATO is USA.
Yeah, I mean, we pay for it. We provide troops. We provide most of the,
Yeah, they try their hardest to take
everything.
away our sovereignty from that organization.
Yeah,
We shouldn't be a part of that. NATO.
No.
We should be. Out of
yeah, I mean, that's something that President Trump was trying to push hard for, right, to get us out of NATO. But obviously, there's logistical challenges to,
If not getting out of NATO, at least everyone paying their fair share. At the very least, do that. Going back to the oil
It's very
thing.
liberal of you.
Even if your argument is gas is bad for the environment, climate change will kill us all, even if that is your argument, the worldwide demand for oil won't go down.
No.
It maintains. And I guarantee you, America can produce oil cleaner, safer than Russia or China or Saudi Arabia. And with that, we can fund these into, we have a free market coming up with other energy sources. I think nuclear is awesome. I think we talked about this last time.
Yep.
But
what is it? Germany said that they're actually pausing their decommissioning of nuclear sites just because of the whole conflict and the Nord Stream 2 pipeline being canceled.
Well, you talk about, we're saying this here, but this is what some people want. They want to shut down oil. They want to turn us into this, real green society. Well, California is your future, right? You and I both from California. What have we seen in California?
They can't have
It's chaos. Absolute chaos. People can't
rolling blackouts,
People can't afford
brownouts.
anything. Fires, everything.
World's largest GDP of a state, and they have to borrow money from the government and from other states to pay for their stuff.
Not just borrow money. They have to borrow water.
Power.
They have to they buy power, water, infrastructure, labor. They pretty much outsource everything that they can to other states to try to support the population and the lifestyle of California. But that's why Silicon Valley and all the people that are like realizing like what a crap hole this place is are leaving. Yes, I know California's beautiful. I know I love the scenery. I love California for the beautiful state that it is and what it was, I think. But politically, economically, with infrastructure and everything going on like that, pollution. I don't know if any of you guys have ever flown into Los Angeles, but it's like flying. It's like flying through
like a smog,
like a volcano erupting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to keep living in California and paying these crazy taxes and just continuing on as if nothing is as if California was like 50 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they tried to build that high speed rail. And they're still working on it. And
No, they haven't even started on it.
Debt.
They haven't even started on it. Nobody even. It was like approved, and then permitting and a bunch of political stuff happened, but it never got started, anyways.
Yeah. So if you can't get a train built in California, then where are you going to get it built?
Rampant homelessness, massive pollution. Your biggest corporations moving out. That is the liberal paradise in California.
Well, like we're just saying, Mike, list off all the things on California that, we're looking at moving into in the future, right? If we head in this liberal direction. But one of the things people don't talk about either is that when they sit there and say, we want to shut off all this oil, how many lives has the use of oil saved, right? Because people don't die. People, they're talking about global warming, right? Or climate change now, but really what they mean is global warming. And, they're talking about like, oh, look at all these people that are going to die because of global warming. When the fact is that per year, more people die from cold than heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what people don't understand is, especially in Europe with the conflict that's going on right now, once Russia says, you know what, you guys keep supplying Ukraine with weapons, zero gas and oil for you guys. You guys want to embargo us? Go for it. Whatever. We can supply India. We can supply China, our big trade partners, right? Europe will go into the dark ages, and people will die from cold and not lack of energy to support themselves. I mean, to refrigerate food. I don't think people really understand how much energy goes into, everyday life nowadays.
Yeah, Mike is already desperate. He ate Kyle.
I ate Kyle, yes. Unfortunately, our good co-host Kyle had to step out for the remainder of the episode. We will see him next week, hopefully.
We're already in capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dark and dreary road that we're treading right now. Geopolitically with energy. I think people have the wrong idea, especially with all the lies that Al Gore and his movie and all these climate.
Well, we were supposed to die back in like 2012.
Yeah, I mean, what is every time somebody's like, oh, the world is gonna be flooded. I'm like, then why are politicians and high society people buying beachfront property, dude?
Yeah, we're supposed to be dead like 10 times over by now.
And the one thing that people never bring up either is they sit there and they say it's like, oh, these places that are going to be underwater, and when you tell them, it's like, yeah, the sea will rise. That's going to happen, and we could tell that through the past. They're like, well, yeah, but it's going to happen quickly. It's like, no, it's going to happen more like over the course of like hundreds of years. Yeah, let's just say hundreds of years, right? What cities are underwater right now? The Netherlands, right? Amsterdam is underwater.
What's it?
Louisiana.
New Orleans.
New Orleans is underwater, right? But what do? They build levees, they build dams, they build all kinds of stuff. They adapt.
Move inland.
Yeah, and they adapt, right?
Novel concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It's the green doomsdayers are just absolutely ridiculous, man. Is there global warming? I can kind of see evidence that there is global warming to the scale that they're saying it is. I think not. I think it's just a natural cycle that the Earth goes through, right? I mean, a great episode is Joe Rogan with I think it was both sides of the coin. He had two different guests on two separate episodes talking about global warming. One said absolute lie. He presented his facts, and then the next episode Joe Rogan had somebody else contradicting him and presenting his facts. Right? I think somewhere maybe in the middle is where we're really at. When it comes to this kind of stuff.
I really like the Swedish gentleman who
Bjorn Lomborg.
Yep. He's great. He talks about global warming's climate change is a thing, but we got about 90 other things that are going to kill us a lot faster. So let's worry about them. And he's getting on the big nuclear train and
kill us faster.
Fix world poverty, fix world hunger. I mean, the guy believes in probably a bunch of social programs, but he's pretty sharp. I really like his analysis.
Yeah, I read his book. There's a couple other ones too. You have Alex Epstein, or Epstein. He has The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, which is an amazing book. I recommend you read it. I've read it several times, and he just goes through. He lays out the reason why we need fossil fuels and the benefits that they have done. Right. And this is a guy. He's done his research. He's a philosopher by trade. He's not in energy, but he did his research. He went out there and looked into it, and he and Bjorn Lomborg are good friends, Mm-hmm. There's another guy, I can't remember his name. He just wrote the book, San Francisco.
He was on Temple's episode, right?
I think he wrote the book Apocalypse Never.
Yeah.
And so he talks about it. He was on the left, and he's like, look, man, he's like, I do believe that there is climate change, but that is a synonymous term, right? We use climate change, right? The climate is always changing. The climate is always going to change. Guess what? We're coming out of an ice age right now. We're going to warm. Now, some people argue about, well, we're warming too fast. We don't know. We've only been here for 2 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
the course of this planet. We haven't been here that long. We don't know. Now, I'm fine for, let's make an argument to if the evidence is there that we are doing something, but not to the extent that I think people are at right now, okay? And I don't want to trash the earth. I don't like seeing oil spills. I don't like seeing some of these things that happen, trash in the oceans and whatnot, right? But as we improve this country, as we've been improving, the other countries, guess what they're not doing? China, India.
Yeah,
right?
they're ramping up their oil, gas, and coal production. It's hilarious. There's like, oh, we got to do everything we can. It's like, but when you look at these other countries like China,
mm-hmm.
which is like they completely offset whatever we're gonna do to go green, guys.
Yep.
And when push comes to shove, I think eventually, will there be a conflict with China? I believe so. When it comes to war and things like that, what's gonna happen then when they have all these oil reserves and oil capacity, and we're over here with our with our Nissan Leaf.
Well, yeah, there you go, right? You want to go to electricity, right? You want to have your electric cars. How are you going to do that, right? You don't want oil, okay? So how are you going to power these cars? Well, what's the biggest one right now? Coal, right? Coal power plants are the biggest producers of electricity for these cars. Well, you don't like coal, so let's get rid of that. Now what do you have? Renewables, wind, solar? Is that going to power all the electric cars that we're going to need or have right now currently? Absolutely not, because one, they're not reliable. They're not plentiful.
The wind is, not at our mercy.
The wind turbines, you have to be in a wind corridor for those to be able to work. You can't just put a wind turbine on your house and then you're going to get power. It's going to be very sporadic.
And as we saw with the Texas power grid, right, their wind turbines were susceptible to cold and extreme weather, which happens from time to time, not because of global warming, but because just nature's unpredictable.
Yeah, you have to treat this like a smart investor. Diversify your portfolio. Get from a lot of different places. Even by most liberal estimates of what wind and solar can do for us, 3% of the world's power can be met by a wind and solar if we did everything we could. And we're not going to do everything we could. And they're not even as efficient as most people think.
No,
from
not by any stretch of the imagination. Not yet. Can they at some point?
Maybe.
So wind, I don't think so. Solar, yes. I think solar always has room to grow, but is it right now? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and there's other things like geothermal, right? There's also,
but you're limited on that to certain areas of the world. So, and then I've also heard people like, well, why can't we dam up all these rivers? I think they said it's like 98% of the dammable rivers in this country and around the world have already been dammed up. You can't dam up the desert in Arizona. It doesn't work, right?
Talk about the ecological effects of fishing.
Yeah, that's out.
It's not even that too. I mean, politically, if you think about it, let's just think about the states, right? If a state upstream decides to dam a river because they want to keep more of their water, what happens to the states downstream for that? They're like, hey, this is part of our river too. Like,
you're killing the delta smelt.
Yeah, you need you need to open this river up and give us our water. And what if the state upstate is like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we saw that with Arizona when they were having their drought a couple of years ago. They told the Great Lakes states, they're like, hey, we want your water. Great Lakes states were like, nah.
You know what's funny? I'm sure you know this too. It's just a side note, and I'm going to get back on track here. But you know that Arizona provides like, I think it's like half the water to LA.
What?
So when SB,
there's a big aqueduct.
Yeah. So Arizona has all this water underground. They have these massive aquifers everywhere underground. So anyway,
it's porous red rock, right? I think they're topography or something like that.
Yeah. So, and they have a nuclear power plant out there, right? But there's no lake or river or anything like that, right? Because they use underground waters. But anyway, so I remember back when SB 1070, I'm going to get back on track here. SB 1070 passed. LA put out that said no government officials can travel to Arizona. So Arizona goes, well, we control your water and some of your power, so we're going to turn these off. And it was like overnight. Yeah. Okay, we're sorry. But anyway, so we can't use oil. We don't want to use oil, right? We don't want to use coal. Wind and solar are out. What does that leave?
Nuclear.
Ding, 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 ding. But guess what we don't like?
Nuclear.
We don't like nuclear.
Yep.
So how are we going to power these cars?
When we talk about the
horse and buggy.
Horse and buggy.
Prayers and unicorn farts.
Yeah, when we talk about the dangers of nuclear, because people think of Chernobyl or what's the one in Japan? Fukushima.
Or even 3 Mile Island.
Yeah, here.
Yeah,
yes.
Which they just shut down.
Yeah, it was still operational. Because it was, I think it was a 3-reactor site or something like that, right? And one of them went down. Yeah, but the other ones were still operating at full capacity.
It was controlled.
Yeah.
Controlled. Yeah, those things are, as we design more nuclear, they become safer and safer. And it's like for those meltdowns, you have to be really, really, a lot of wrong things have to go. And we talk about how many fatalities per unit of energy provided, given the 3 biggest meltdowns of nuclear power plants, nowhere near the tolls of only a handful of oil spills or fires. Like nuclear per energy is one of the safest things you can do. I think it's a great idea.
You know, a funny thing, also a little bit off topic, that I was looking at. I'm slightly a bit of a nerd, so I was looking at some NASA stuff and obviously Joe Rogan's episodes. And I remember I saw, a bunch of NASA scientists are always saying like, hey, all of this, naysay on energy and oil and everything matters nothing, because if there's a big enough solar flare or a solar event, it's going to fry everything. Yeah. And we're back in the dark ages again, but guess what's still going to work? Gas, oil, But electricity, all these chips and everything are getting fried.
Our national power grid is atrocious. It's terrible.
Oh, man. I think what's the operating program again? It's called Cobalt. I think there's like 3 people that still know how to program in that old language, archaic language.
No way.
And they're all like in their 80s, 90s. And so once these guys go down, dude, I mean, if we don't, restructure the power grid or, whatever it is, the infrastructure, it's like, who knows how to turn this on?
Dude, I've talked to some old school hackers that grew up on Cobalt. Those guys are like in their 70s or 80s.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that we can do anymore.
I love as at least some of the people in West Virginia can take a joke and they poke fun at themselves. I see them driving their Teslas, and in West Virginia you can get a license plate. It's a black license plate that supports coal. And so on their Teslas, they get these black license plate that says "I support coal," which is hilarious because it's exactly what's powering their car.
Yeah.
But they can take a joke. They're like, "Hey, you know what? I like this, but you know what? At the same time, I know where my power comes from."
Yeah. Picking back on comment you said earlier, we really want to take care of our land, and God's created this earth for us and given us dominion over it to take care of it. That's our charge to make sure this is in its best form. And I really think that the more we push the free market, the more we push values. And I see a lot of movements. You and I are in them where you go towards more shopping farm to table, self-reliancy, growing your own stuff. The more that movement becomes bigger, the more you care about nature, the more you the less you rely on this coal and gas, and the more kind of opens up the gas to go towards other things and more of a mindset to take care of the land that we have.
Yeah, I think when it comes to our faith and what we believe in, being members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I think it's God helps you to be as prosperous as you can, right? He loves us and he wants the best for us, but he's also like, hey, you're an adult, right? In the words of Ron Swanson, like, teach a man to fish and he eats for a day, or don't teach him how to fish and you eat yourself. Yeah. Fishing's not that hard, being adult. And I mean, it's so true, being self-reliant. I mean, I think the homesteading movement is so huge, especially in the last couple of years because of COVID, right? People realize that, the supply chain, being self-reliant on where your food comes from is so important. I know me and my wife are, avid homestead, enthusiasts, and, we want to kind of start that chapter of our life soon. And, again, that circles back to our faith, right? Our Father in heaven, God, he provides us, he gives a little nudge and provides, like 10, 20% of the effort. And, he expects us to make up the rest or whatever we can do. Right. Mm-hmm. But he leaves it to us to determine whether we're going to be successful and go after our dreams and, wishes and, be as prosperous as we can in this life, or we're just going to waste our talents, right? And just subside and subsist on the government, daddy's money and government programs, right? I mean, unfortunately, that I understand some people are in tough situations every day. I understand that people struggle. I mean, I didn't grow up with vast amounts of money. None of us I don't think anybody here on the podcast did.
I grew up in the Barrios in Arizona, man.
Exactly, man. I mean, growing up on beans and tortillas, cheese, like that's just the way it is, And I think that brings a bit of humility and understanding of other people's plights, and I feel for them, I really do. But at the same time, you gotta pick yourself up and you gotta go after, right? You gotta take chances, you gotta take risks, you gotta do as much as you can, and then pray and ask Heavenly Father for to help you get the rest of the way through. So,
what's the metaphor of the air mask jump from the airplane? Focus on yourself before you help others.
Yeah. If you have kids, first put on the oxygen mask on yourself and then you take care of who you need
your
to
kids.
take care of. Yeah.
But you got to take off your COVID mask.
Oh.
No, don't take it off in the middle of the plane.
Imagine the mask comes down and there's like another mask on it. You're like, no, you have to double mask. What?
You're waiting to see that one person.
What do I do? Filter through it.
And they're like, as soon as you move it down, and just put your mask on.
You're just looking at him like.
I mean, everything, all the COVID stuff is just nobody cares anymore.
No.
All these Did you guys see that?
It just magically disappeared.
You see that California like slowly like lifted all their mask mandates for their schools and everything, and all these states like they just magically went away.
Yeah,
Amazing how no one makes
everybody's
Yeah.
such a politically charged, stupid set of rules. Can't believe it. So yeah, you have to focus on yourself, and then so you're in a good mind space and you're healthy to help someone else. Same with homesteading and being able to build up a pile of food. I knew someone who did their own canning and their own food storage. They had a stack of those like shopping baskets in their basement that their neighbors could come and go through their massive food storage, and other people could take their stuff. What an awesome thing to do for your community. Vote with your dollar. Buy from people local that support this kind of stuff and help each other build this kind of stuff. Self-reliance is key. We want America to do it with our energy. We want all of you to do it with your lives so you can help yourselves and those around you. One final thing before we leave this topic. Really impressed with your research. For those of you who don't know the background behind this, Mike is kind of our AV technician and editor. So I saw like you doing your homework. Like I saw a whole teacher's pet thing trying to impress the guy running this.
I'll give you your sticker later.
My beard's still better than yours.
And now I'm here just like the class clown while you're doing all your homework.
No, I mean, for those of you guys listening, I mean, we try to do our best. Obviously, we're still new at this, as you guys can notice with, cameras and audio and stuff, we'll eventually get better. But we're just trying to bring you guys fresh ideas and, our views on these topics that we're talking about.
Well, plus, when we first started this, we said that, we're just normal people sitting around having a conversation, right? Anybody could do what we're doing right now. And you should get the word out. But the biggest thing we just want people to see is that any of this information that I found, you can Google it.
Yep.
Easy, right? But it took me, a better part of an hour to figure out some of this stuff. I found it, and here, now you have it, right? It's not hard.
Yeah,
you just got to do some more.
It takes work, right?
Check your sources.
Anything good is and worth of value.
No, and I didn't go right and I didn't go left. I went right down the middle, used the government information.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's jump into our other story that we have, kind of more on the world stage again. If you guys haven't been following this, the U.S. has really been, and all NATO countries and other countries around the world have been pushing to censor and restrict, the Russian finances. And I think this next article from Yahoo News really compounds. And actually, for certain reasons that we'll talk about soon, it's really a scary topic. The fact that this is happening to Russia. Especially because once you really mess with a country's finances and they don't have another way out and way to do transactions, that really puts them in kind of like a no-win situation and then makes them desperate, right? So, with further ado, let's talk about this. This is from again Yahoo News. Visa and Mastercard suspend Russian operations amid shocking and devastating invasion. Visa and MasterCard are suspending operations in Russia as President Vladimir Putin ratchets up his bloody invasion of Ukraine. Visa said on Saturday that it would cut off transactions over the coming days, adding that once the ban is in place, card issues in Russia won't work abroad and foreign issue cards won't work inside Russia either. We're compelled to act following Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine and the unacceptable events that we have witnessed, Visa CEO Al Kelly said in a statement. MasterCard quickly followed suit, calling the Russian war on Ukraine shocking and devastating. MasterCard's ban will be similar to Visa's. So what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think the impact, worldwide?
How much reliance does Russia have on MasterCard and Visa?
What reliance on it? Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I think Visa and MasterCard are kind of the world's premier, I guess, financial transaction, companies or methods. I mean, everything is either Visa or MasterCard.
I mean, I know from my perspective, where I live, everything's Visa, MasterCard. I just don't know internationally and with a community like Russia. It'd be nice to choke them out, make this more expensive than they can afford so they can't do a long invasion. Hopefully Ukraine holds out, but I don't know if they have other resources they can turn to for financing.
Well, I think when it comes to the war, I mean, I think they're committed. I don't think they have any other way but to keep going and go for the gold, and try to take over Ukraine. I think when it comes to the finances, I mean, I think this is just going to impact oil again. gas prices and, drive them closer to, unification with, China on a global scale against the West and NATO countries.
It's it's kind of scary to me in a sense. Of course, I don't support what Russia's doing. Nobody does. I would imagine, except for Pooty Poot. But I believe we should do things to take action, such as stop buying Russian oil, imposing actual harsh sanctions on Russia that prevent them from doing business. I get that. This, I don't know enough about it to really speak on it, but just off of what I'm seeing, the biggest thing that I can think of is that there's a slippery slope to this in a sense. Mm-hmm. If Visa and Mastercard can do this to an entire country, if at some point in time their political alignment doesn't align with yours, what's to keep them from shutting you off? Yeah. Right? Oh, well, everything's starting to go digital. Well, we see you voted for such and such politician. We don't like that. We don't want to do business with you anymore. And in fact, we're going to shut off all your cards. And you can sit there and say, it's hyperbole. You're going down this dark road, but it always does that. It always ends up that way.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's actually already happened. There are several very, I'm not going to say very, but at least, center, libertarian, right-leaning, political commentators, people that started businesses like the CEO of Gab, the social network, and he was ousted from all these financial services, MasterCard, Visa, Amex, he had no recourse on how to pay for things
Bitcoin
or how to
was
bank.
His only
crypto and Bitcoin were the only
checks.
His saving grace. And he said because of that, it was really the only reason why Gap is still allowed to continue today. And they think they developed their own payment system, just like Locals did. Dave Rubin's company that he sold off.
This is driving the parallel economy.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not faulting Visa for anything yet. Okay. Taking actions against Russia, I agree with. Not taking action against the people is another thing too. Like China, we don't like the governments, right? We don't like the Chinese government. We don't like the Russian government. The people, on the other hand, has a different story. Okay. But yeah, I'm cautious and wary of things like this on a global, massive scale like this, that at some point in time, it's going to be weaponized, right? It's being weaponized right now for a good purpose, right? But what's, again, to keep them from, 10, 15 years from now using it politically to shut you down, which we saw social media is doing, right? Social media, if you were somebody on the right or you supported Trump or whatever it may be, they shut you down, shut you off.
There is a statement from Homeland Security that they're elevating people, spreaders of misinformation, akin to terrorists.
Oh yeah, I did see it. I saw an article related to that.
Yeah,
I didn't get too deep into it though.
That is concerning because we all hate terrorism and how many powers we have given the government to take care of terrorists, and now we have not defined terrorists. We have applied it to anyone we disagree with, and that is a horrible state to be in. Taken to the most logical conclusion of this, or there's a few ways to take it. One, look at China and their social credit. There is a gentleman who was an MMA enthusiast in China. He went around teaching people how traditional Kung Fu was not adequate in the face of Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, Western boxing. And he went around beating a bunch of Kung Fu masters, right? I can't remember this gentleman's name, but he's been on several podcasts and has a movement. And he was showing that Kung Fu doesn't work. In China, a world superpower, mind you, people who are worried about world trade, nuclear research, military, technology. Last thing on a superpower's mind should be the politics of MMA. They saw this guy bad-mouthing a Chinese national pride of Kung Fu, saying it was ineffectual. You can't speak bad about that because you speak bad about China. They ruined his social credit so he couldn't travel. He couldn't get any loans. He couldn't buy anything. They exiled him because he spoke badly about Kung Fu. If you don't know what social credit is, it is this system in China where they evaluate your social security, your crime rate, your all this stuff, and they evaluate as a person what goods and services you're allowed to have. China doesn't believe in a constitution like we do. They fully believe they have the right to control information and look at people's personal information and make decisions about their lives. They think they have that power as a government to do that. So they develop the social credit to control your lives, and they squander stupid stuff like this that wouldn't matter. We don't want people to have that kind of power over us. I'm so happy to have a constitution that at least blocks that kind of intrusion. But when we see the expanse of terrorists, which is a soft definition word, it's concerning.
Well, we have it here in the United States already. It's called ESG.
Yeah. ESG score.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You want to explain that a little bit?
Environmental social governance, right? So basically, it's a work around the Constitution that the United States government, and I'm not necessarily saying this as the government is fomenting this, however, a case can be made. But what they're doing is they're going through companies, right? A public-private partnership to basically allow these companies to make up their own decision whether or not they want to do business with somebody or employ somebody or whatever it may be. And these businesses are part, a lot of them are signing on with this pledge from the World Economic Forum, right? And this pledge basically states, go look it up. It's free to find on the World Economic Forum. And the pledge basically says, I will not do business with anybody who deals in oil, natural gases, anything like that, anything that isn't green. I will not sell to anybody who deals in these things. I will not loan to anybody who deals in these things. And so we see these companies like, was it BlackRock? BlackRock. So the state of West Virginia, which I'm proud to say, the Secretary of State, I believe, basically they ousted BlackRock out of West Virginia. So BlackRock no longer is
able to do business.
Not do business, but they used to they control like their funds and stuff like that for investments. And so they ousted BlackRock because guess what? BlackRock doesn't like coal, right? Oh yeah. Well, that's
well, the coal in the U.S., but they'll invest in coal
in China
and abroad.
Yeah. So it's like we're going to use these ESG scores, just like you said. It's going to be here in the U.S., and instead of a basic like a credit score, what this is probably going to turn into, is going to be, you're going to have like a social credit score, and your social credit score will determine, well, can you get a loan for a car? Can you sign for a house? How much house can you buy? Guess what? You own 80 acres of land. That's too much land. Nobody should own 80 acres of land. You know what? Credit score is going down. There was an episode of Seth MacFarlane's show making fun of like Star Trek and stuff like that. What was it called? Galaxy? No, not Galaxy.
Orville.
The Orville.
Yeah.
And there was an episode where they go to this planet and everybody has these little buttons on their shirts and you can push the button up or push it down, or you could also vote for somebody online. So everybody has these credit scores, right? Well, if your credit gets to a low enough point, they like lobotomize you. Oh, but it's like
we're totally
parody. You're seeing, it's like the Babylon Bee, right?
Yeah.
Everything on the Babylon Bee is like turning into reality at like record pace.
All the writers on Babylon Bee are like, oh, this is hilarious. It'd be so funny if this ever happened. And they're like, 2 weeks later, like, oh my gosh, this actually is happening.
And it's horrifying.
Yeah, but the ESG stuff, you can look it up. It's what they're basically, the World Economic Forum is doing is they're taking what China has already done and they're trying to make it a softer, more gentler version.
Yeah, the thing is, like, a lot of like academics here in the U.S. are pushing it. And even politicians are like, oh, this is a great system. We should implement it here in the U.S. And like, they've been kind of backdooring it through companies, through the ESG score here in the United States, which is very scary, right? Because it goes directly against the Constitution and everything we believe in. And I think that's the problem. I think nowadays people are just ignoring the Constitution and nobody's upholding it, man. Like Supreme Court, nothing. The Constitution is just being tossed to the wayside.
Well, look what just happened in Canada. You had those truckers, the Freedom Convoy. Yeah, they blockaded. Was it Ottawa? Mm-hmm. And they went after their banks. The banks went after them to shut them down, right?
And whoever also donated to them, right? There was a story about this mom who was like a single mom of like 3 or 4 kids or something. Mm-hmm. And she donated, I think, like $10 to the Canadian dollars to the convoy. They canceled her bank account or something, or froze her assets or something. She couldn't pay for rent or buy groceries.
Well, they were talking about revoking these truckers their insurance. It's just like, you got to be kidding me. But this is ESG. You're seeing it happen a little bit at a time, but it's a lot of people just don't know what it is yet. but this is ESG. This is the World Economic Forum.
Right. What infuriated me about the Freedom Convoy is they had a Kickstarter page raise money for them, and they shut it down because we didn't know what this was. It's a bunch of right-wing extremists protesting and being violent. Well,
they didn't just shut it down. They actually stole the funds. And they said, oh, we're actually going to distribute the funds to charities that we select. I'm like, first of all, that's not your money. You're just a middleman to collect funds and distribute to the people, to the organization that people donated to. If you don't want to do business with them, that's fine. Just return the money to the people so they can give it through a different.
I think they had to end up doing that. They changed that. They did do that, but
really? I haven't heard that the money was returned.
Yeah, so they
had to.
They're parallel economies again, right? So people were tired of that, so they went to Give Send Go, right? Give Send Go is a Christian organization that parallels the other one. What's it called?
GoFundMe.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
But again, parallel economies. So people went to Give Send Go, raised another like $8 million, and then like overnight, Give Send Go got hacked. DDoS attacks. They got
the list of donors for the
and then they started tracking them
doxing
down.
them.
Yeah. So Freedom Convoy, police reports, they arrested them for protesting. If that, very few, probably none violence between them. You see,
as far as I know, there was no violence.
No violence.
There was.
Was there?
There was a driver that tried to run over somebody.
Oh, that's right.
Do you know who they were?
They were Antifa affiliated.
Oh, yes, they were Antifa.
BLM Antifa affiliated.
Yes,
Antifa. Oh, but that wasn't reported, right? It was just reported that somebody in the truck ran over somebody else at the protest. But they, it's hilarious how they bury the lead, man. It's like all the way at the bottom. They're like, oh, by the way, this person was affiliated with Antifa.
Yeah,
it's points period, right?
Yeah, the one Nazi flag they find, it's like, oh, here's this guy with the Nazi flag. It's like, it's Canada, dude.
I mean, did you guys know that the convoy also kicked that person out?
Exactly.
Immediately.
Did anybody run up to the guy or the girl and ask them, why are you here? Why do you have that flag? No, they just go, oh, look, there's a flag. It's like, this person's with them. How do you know?
So no arrests on violent crimes anywhere. A lot of those are plants. Antifa tried to make the protests violent. It failed because these people are reasonable. Their GoFundMe gets tossed out. Remind me what GoFundMe did with BLM. They had a GoFundMe for BLM, and they never took it off. And that was millions, nearly just shy of $1 billion of damages in arson and vandalism.
Yeah, what's hilarious is that all that money right now is being investigated because nobody knows who's in charge or where it went. But then again, head of one of the founders of BLM
bought a mansion.
She bought several of them, right?
Yeah.
But then she left the organization. So they're like, how did you pay for this? You're a nonprofit. Like, how did you pay for multi-million-dollar homes in Topanga Cain, California, Los Angeles, right? Like one of the richest neighborhoods in the freaking country.
Yeah, well, there's a good episode. I think it's still free. You could go to the Blaze and they walk you through this. They tracked it
where the money went.
Yeah. It was basically, it was getting funneled into very leftist organizations, and most of that money did not go to black organizations at all.
Yeah, it probably went back to Democratic super PACs or something like that, right?
Yeah,
because they have their I know the Blaze report on this too. Shell corporations that they used to funnel money to the DNC. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to find out who those are, you guys can go check the Blaze.
Yeah, next time I have a bit of homework. There are 2 or 3 individuals I know that came from black impoverished communities that started their own schools and their own programs for people donating to help these communities they came from. They set up their own private schools. They set up their own mentoring programs. They have done more to revitalize their communities than BLM. Not a single cent of BLM has gone to help poor black communities. And there are several private organizations that do tens of thousands, times 0 is still 0, above what they can do.
Well, again, to get back to the premise of what we were talking about,
way off target.
I'm okay with people raising money for BLM. I'm okay with people raising money for their Freedom Convoy.
Absolutely.
I'm okay with people raising money for any of these organizations if that's what you want to do. Don't dox the people who are doing it. It's your money, right? Do what you want to do. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that's illegal, investigate it. Go through the process, right? Mm-hmm. But if you want to donate to whatever organization your heart sees fit, do it. It's your money. I don't want to shut that stuff down. Just like when we get to freedom of speech, right? we're hearing stuff now about, it's like, well, we need to have some barriers on freedom of speech, this and that. It's like, no, you either have freedom of speech or you don't. Okay. And so same thing when it comes to this, it's like, it's your life, live your life, donate the money to who you want to donate to. Don't shut those organizations down. If you want to do business with GoFundMe, do business with GoFundMe. If you want to do business with Give, Send, Go, do business with Give, Send, Go. But the thing is, you're going to see this parallel economy expand, because the problem is that the left, they want to interfere with your life and they want to be able to control things, whereas typically the right just want to be left alone. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think just the state of the world, and especially here in the U.S., we're just screwed. I'll go ahead and say, I mean, to come back from,
I have hope. I have hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is hope. There's always hope, I think. I think the culture war is definitely changing. Yeah, I think the culture is people are definitely starting to see that, being this woke, radical leftist is just not conducive to a good life. Especially if you want to, be happy and find somebody and get married. And I mean, if you don't, that's on you. Again, that's your choice.
Biblical principles.
Exactly.
Right? Teach or treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah, I mean, this country was founded on Christian principles, right? Judeo-Christian principles. Judeo-Christian principles. And the founder said that, this country would not function if the morality was not what it was.
Well, right? The Constitution doesn't function under any other
premise.
Way.
Any other premise, yeah. And so I believe that right now, faith, morality, all of that is under attack. I believe that, the personification of, just, what is it? What were those views called? Like in Rome and in Greece, where they're just kind of free thinking, open-minded. Do whatever you want, and enjoy life to the fullest. And it doesn't matter if you're doing bad things, as long as it makes you happy, you're good to go. But
gluttony too.
Absolutely. So I think it's a sad state that we got into this point where sides have to be chosen, and unfortunately, that's where we're headed. So, go get out of the cities, start a homestead, raise some chickens, some pigs, grow some veggies, see how hard it is to grow a turnip.
Yeah.
Even if you don't eat it.
Yeah, I saw this ABC special about this lady living in New York doing a mom meetup program, and she can't make any money off of it, and her husband does some green thing, making, I don't know, $60,000 a year. They spend $5,000 a month on childcare and then $5,000 a month on rent. That does not add up. Like, she was talking about how they need social programs to afford all this stuff.
I'm bad with maths. Can you add that up for me, please?
No, they're like,
it was like $10,000, so $5,000 for childcare and $5,000 for rent.
And
that sounds about right for New York City. I mean, for those of you guys who don't know, I worked in New York City for a couple of years, and my boss, he was paying like $3+ grand in childcare, dude. And he was commuting from New Jersey all the way in through Manhattan into Brooklyn. And I mean,
what you're basically saying is that well over 50% of their income is going towards this stuff.
Yeah, they can't afford all that. They had to do, loans. But
get out of the city.
$33 grand is about where it should be, because I think the most expensive one in New York, you can look it up, is about $700-800 per kids, and they have cheaper for one. But that's the most expensive. Go half that. Or how about this? Instead of renting, move out, find a different job, and buy some land.
Oh, Brian has a thought.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. However, if you move to these areas, don't move to West Virginia. One, stay out of West Virginia. But no, I'm joking aside. If you move to these areas, if you are fleeing, San Francisco, L.A., Sacramento, you're fleeing New York, New Jersey.
He's passionate now.
You're fleeing all of these places, and you're going to red states, right? So that you can go buy your house and your land and get away from these laws that you hate so much. Do not vote for those same things when you get to those areas.
Yep.
Don't do it. You let that for a reason, right? If you love it so much, stay there and wallow in it. Don't move out where the rest of us are, where we're enjoying life, right?
Join us. We'll welcome you with open arms.
If you abide by how we want to live out there, then yes. Somebody else brought it up. They said, it's like they're saying, why are you trying to make Texas California? California already exists. Let Texas be Texas,
Yeah,
right?
go to California.
Yeah, live in California if you like that stuff so much, or New York.
They want the quality of life of Texas with the culture of California. It's like, but then it just becomes California.
Yeah. Oh, we hate Florida so much. What did Nancy Pelosi just do? She bought a house out in Florida and she's going to retire there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not this year.
Yes. You know, be civically involved, vote what's passionate about, but realize if you're moving one place to go to another place because they've developed a better standard of living, then acknowledge why it's a better standard of living, and realize that, you know, you should acknowledge that place for what they've developed, and be supportive of that. You know, you left there because the policies made life there poor. So acknowledge that when you move somewhere else, and pay attention to the policies they've supported and how that has led to a better standard of life. And, you know, educate yourself on that and learn from it and open your mind, see the other side. I think it's great to go out and experience a different culture within America, many different cultures within America.
It's funny, this topic, because I saw a story about AOC going to Texas and saying, hey, we're going to change Texas to blue or something like that. We're going to make Texas blue. It's like, first of all, you're representing Queens. What are you doing in Texas?
Yeah.
Second of all, what are you doing in Texas? Nobody likes you there. Get away from Texas. Go back to Queens. You know, she doesn't spend a minute in Queens in her district. Yeah. She does. You know, they're supposed to live in their district, but she doesn't own a single place in Queens. And it's hilarious because I have friends, you know, who share our faith, and you know, they moved to New York just shortly after I did, and their political views just went into the gutter, man. I mean, they're hardcore AOC fans now. I'm just like, how can you be a supporter of AOC and the things that she espouses when they're completely contradictory to your faith and beliefs? You know, and I'm not talking about systemic oppression, because that's not a thing. All right. AOC was not systemically oppressed because she went from being a bartender to being a freaking congresswoman. All right, so don't
that's
tell
the American
me
dream.
Don't tell me exactly. Don't tell me that there's people being racist and stopping her from achieving that. Okay, not when that success story is there. So and what?
Didn't they raise all this money for her abuela in Puerto Rico, and then they like had to shut it down because the right raised so much money? The racist right raised all this money for her abuela.
Yeah, she couldn't take it. She couldn't take it. There's no way she would have been able to take that, man, because then there's nothing she could stand on.
But you don't see anybody from Texas going to New York and saying, "Yeah, we need to make New York red." Like, no, nobody, dude. Because people understand. It's like
stay there. Stay there if you want this.
You made this bed. You sleep in it.
Yep.
Enjoy it. Okay. Don't come to ours and ruin ours and wreck ours.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The left cannot tolerate. Right. They're intolerable. They can't see happiness elsewhere, and so they have to go there and change it and make everybody else miserable. And I'm sorry, but that's not something that I am interested in whatsoever.
Yes, and I know we're going to wrap up here pretty soon, but elections have consequences.
Yep.
These elections are coming up. If you vote, don't focus on the bigger picture. Focus on the smaller picture. Focus on your local elections. Figure out who's in your school board. Figure out who is, constable. Figure out who's your sheriff. Figure out these local elections. Go out there. Do your research. Don't just vote for them because they have an R or a D in their name. Don't. Do your research. All right? Party affiliation, whatever, that doesn't really matter. Who are these people? What do they stand for and what do they believe? Yep. Focus on these smaller elections, and it'll change the bigger picture.
Yep, I think the most important one is definitely the school boards. I think it all starts with your children, right? I mean, the next generation, they're being taught right now the beliefs and values that they're going to espouse into later generations. And if the left keeps winning these arguments and teaching your children about all this garbage CRT crap, then unfortunately that's where the country's going to go, and that's where your children are going to believe and teach their children and children and so forth. Yep. So vote primary elections. Vote for your school boards. Make sure that
get on the school boards.
Get on the school boards. Absolutely. Be involved, and then as well as like your city councils and your mayor, your town, your sheriff. Absolutely, that's very important. Yeah. And make every state constitutional carry. I think Georgia is about to become a constitutional carry.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, they just passed the bill in the House. I think it's going to the Senate or something like
It's funny because they have that one county that they passed a law where everybody had to own a weapon, and the crime rate just sunk.
But yeah, I mean, thankfully we have Stacey Abrams running, and hopefully that changes things. Just kidding.
Let's wrap this up.
Well, thank you all for watching episode 3. We really appreciate it. I think it was a great conversation, and if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. You can find us first and foremost on Rumble, as well as obviously YouTube, Gab, coming to you on also Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts as well. So you can find us on all those big platforms.
You got to get a Patreon or something.
Oh, we actually, if you want to support us, we are on Locals as well. Hey. If you want to, help us get better equipment and hire a college intern. Hire a college intern to push the buttons and run all our stuff. That would be awesome too. But we really appreciate your support and tuning in to listen. You guys want to say anything in closing?
Nope. Good. Awesome. Good job.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks again. We'll see you guys next time.